Vernomatic Productions.
Are you ready?
Live from the Metal Mayhem Studios in Rochester, New York.
We are gold. We are gold.
And heard around the world by metalheads just like you. This is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Heavy metal music.
Your weekly dose of metal music, interviews, album reviews, news, and more. Want to be part of the show? Send us a message through our website, metalmayhemroc.com, or hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Search Metal Mayhem ROC, a proud member of the Pantheon podcast team.
It's getting nice and heavy.
Now, welcome our hosts, John the Vernomatic Verno, and direct from New Jersey, Metal Walt.
Good evening, everybody. As always, new content drops on Thursday nights. Cannot believe that we are approaching August 2024. Man, football camps are in session. Everyone's on vacation. We're in the dog days of summer. It's a beautiful time right now. Talk about beautiful times. We got a kick-ass interview tonight as our very own Metal Walt had a chance to catch up with singer and guitarist Tod Howarth of Frehley's Comet fame and the band 4x This past June, there was a benefit memorial concert for the late, great John Regan, who Tod played with in Ace Frehley and some other projects. Well, they got all the guys together and had a big concert up in the New York, New Jersey area. I believe it was in Poughkeepsie. Well, Metal Walt was there, connected with Tod, so he invited Tod onto the show. So tonight they're talking about all the times Tod in Ace Frehley, how he auditioned to get into band, the songs and music he contributed to those first two solo albums, the self-titled and the Second Sighting album. They discuss Tod's career, playing with Ted Nugent, Cheap Trick, 707, being on the road with Frehley's Comet with Iron Maiden. There's a cool story about what happened there. And there's an even cooler story about hooking up with Vinnie Vincent and on a Kiss Cruise pre-party while they're performing Lick It Up. All cool Kiss Ace kind of stories. So that's what's coming up. Let's see. If you like what we're doing here, do us a favor. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon. And if you leave a review, we'll read it on a future show. Recent episodes last week, we had Brian Heaton on to promote the new book, Road to Madness, the touring history of Queensryche. A few weeks before that, John Jackson of the Bon Scott family estate discussing Bon's birthday bash. And as always, we have tons and tons of back episodes up on our website, which is metalmayhemroc.com. Get up there. We have a brand new merch page with men's t-shirts, women's fitted shirts, hoodies, drinkware, stickers, posters. There's a brand new Metal Mayhem ROC live radio show t-shirt up there. So get up there, metalmayhemroc.com. So let's get into tonight's episode. Singer and guitarist Tod Howarth of Frehley's Comet and 4x For my co-host Metal Walt, I'm the Vernomatic, and we are Metal Mayhem ROC.
Good evening, everyone. Today, I'm joined by singer and guitarist Tod Howarth of Frehley's Comet and 4x who is here to talk about his back history and the recent John Regan Memorial Concert held in Poughkeepsie, New York. Tod, welcome to Metal Mayhem ROC.
Lance, thank you for having me here. I'm very happy to be here and to be upright, honestly. But
well, thanks, and thanks you for turning this around in really short notice. So you and I were together about a week ago in Poughkeepsie for this night, and we're going to talk a lot about that event. But first, before we get to that, I want to go back in time. So let's go back to the summer of 1987 and 1988. I was 17, turning 18. CDs were just coming out, and I got my first car. It was a 1976 light blue Buick Skylark that was a hand-me-down, and I was the fourth and last guy in my family to get it. But, Tod, this was the first time I had a CD player in that car, and I can tell you in all sincerity, the Frehley's Comet CD was on constant play over and over and over and over again. And I will tell you, it's funny. Some of my best buddies still, and one of them was over this past weekend, and we were talking about the show, and we were recalling how back in those summers, we all tried to sing along like Tod, but it was like nobody could hit the high notes, and we would try, and we would just crackle them.
Well, back then, that was what, 30, almost 38 years ago. Actually, 30, about 37, I guess. But yeah, some of the notes said, I've got a good range. My range is still good, but, I hit some trees in there, didn't I?
Listen, it's like we all have those points in time where it's like the soundtracks of your lives. Again, being
Right.
17 and 18, I'm 54 now, but I remember it like yesterday. We were talking about the shows too back then. I was at my first ever Frehley's Comet show at the Beacon Theater. It was September of '87, I think it was, with White Lion and Y&T, and then of course the Iron Maiden tour at the Meadowlands Arena in East Rutherford the following summer. So those are the times when you would see a band 2-3 times, maybe 4 times in a matter of a year and a half, because they were always coming through.
Those are good times. I mean, touring wise, and for the fans, it was great because they could see a band, and a few months later, let's see them again. To go back into Cheap Trick when I was touring with them, it's like, weren't we just here? I mean, did we just play this venue? Like every few months or so.
That's fun. So talking about Cheap Trick, so a little bit about, let's say, your back history. I mean, maybe your first band that we have knowledge about was the band called 707, but you did spend time with Cheap Trick and even Ted Nugent, and had some, let's say, participation on the Penetrator album and tour. So maybe just take us back to the beginning in your, let's say, your musical start.
Big band that I ever played with out of LA. They were originally from Detroit or Michigan area, I guess I should say. And I had seen them at a place called the Starwood here in LA. I'm here in San Diego. And I remember looking at him going, oh, that's cool. The keyboard player, he sings, he plays guitar just like me, And I'm not sure if I had moved up there yet or not, but I was soon to be living there. And then it come to pass that some friends of mine said, hey, that the band 707 is looking for somebody, maybe you should audition. So I got I got the record and I found the management on the backside, and I called them up and said, hey, I'm so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And they said, oh, wow, thanks for calling us. We just hired somebody for the tour, but thank you. We'll keep your name on file. And I'm thinking, yeah, right, sure. I said, okay, well, thank you very much. And sure enough, a few months later, they called me up. I guess the guy didn't work out, and they called me, and I went and auditioned. I had to audition twice, because the first time I showed up, I was just a little too Hollywood. And, I nailed it. I mean, as far as I knew, I thought, I nailed the audition. And the managers liked me, and they said, look, just come back in a week or two, tone it down, don't be so Hollywood, and, dress a little bit more like they're dressing and do the same thing. And, I'm sure it'll work out. And that's exactly what I did. It worked. And that was my first big band. And we went out on tour with REO Speedwagon and the High Fidelity tour, which was the biggest tour I've done to date. It was huge. I thought I'm on my way, and that wasn't the case.
That was big times. High Infidelity. That was their peak. They were on MTV and radio and everything else like that, right?
I just ran the Cronin, last year, I guess it was, I went to see Robin Sanders' son play, and Robin was there, and Pam, his wife, Pam was there, and then Kevin Cronin was there. I was like, hey, Kevin, what's going on? Long time no see, but great tour.
And talk about your time with Uncle Ted, and give us some Uncle Ted stories. I mean, Penetrator, I was a little young for that when it came out, but I became a pretty big Bad Company fan later on, and Brian Howe took over for Bad Company in the late 80s, and that was the one album that he sang on. So did you play with these guys in the studio, or were you just on the road with them?
Well, because 707 was on tour with a bunch of bands, and including Ted Nugent, doing Summerfest, Ted took a liking to our band. Long story short, when 707 had finally disbanded, at that point, Ted had asked me to sing backgrounds, and Kevin Russell, a guitar player from 707, to sing backgrounds for the Penetrator tour, a Penetrator album, which they're recording in San Francisco. So we did, and then Ted and manager asked me, hey, after I moved back down here to San Diego, they called me up and said, hey, we would like to have it come out and do the tour. You're doing keyboards and guitar and singing. Could you do that? I said, well, hell yeah. So January, I flew back out there, and we did a couple weeks of rehearsals, and we headed straight for Europe. And Brian Howe was singing. Initially, we had Mark Bowles, great singer, great singer. He was playing bass, and he was like a backup singer in case, not backup, but a backup to if Brian was to bail, at least that Ted would have a singer and Ted would sing. They didn't want me singing lead. I don't think they really knew that I could sing lead, or they weren't interested. But we did all the Europe stuff. Then we came back to the States, and Mark left, and Dave Caswini came back in and played bass, and it was a fun band. Ted is Ted. He wasn't all. I mean, he's political back then, and his stance is very much like mine. But I wasn't so outspoken or even thinking about it back then as much, and neither was he. But we had a lot of fun. The tours were great. Ted found out I could drive, and so pretty soon we were racing the streets and with 2 cars, with the bands, and we had picnics at his ranch where we shot guns and ate bear and deer and had a blast, doing that, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was about 6 straight months with Ted, and then I thought we were going to take a break and do it again, but that never happened, and that's just the business. But yeah, Ted he had the gift of gab, and sometimes in Europe he'd be driving, I'd be up front, and I'd fall asleep, and we'd be driving to the next gig, and I'd wake up, and he'd still be talking just to himself. He'd go, yeah, well, and then I was this, and I'm shooting that, and I'm looking like, wow, does he ever shut the hell up? But it was funny times. I mean, he had a great sense of humor, and very prolific in interviews, and I mean, I learned a lot, and I had a great time with him.
That's good stuff. It's just as we know Ted for, let's say, the general public seeing him on TV and on radio, but glad you had that experience. So, we wanted to talk about the legacy of John Regan, but as you get into the Frehley's Comet era, as we started at the top of the show, you came in the late 80s, it was 87 or so, and Ace had already sort of put together a band. Richie Scarlett was his original, let's say, rhythm guitarist and co-lead singer, or whatever you want to call it. But then right before you guys cut the album, you came in, and I believe I recall you maybe even mentioning at the concert last week that John was pivotal in getting you in the door. So just talk about how you got in the door with Ace and Frehley's Comet.
Well, John actually built that band, Frehley's Comet. I mean, he had Arthur Stead, who played with him in John Waite's band when they were on tour. That's how I met John Regan, when I was playing with Cheap Trick, and John Waite and Cheap Trick were doing co-headline bill. We'd swap whoever was headliner, and that's where I met John. And we talked a lot about just music stuff and what I could do. He said, I'm working on a project right now you might be good for. And in the original Frehley's Comet, they had, Arthur Stead playing keyboards, and Richie Scarlett he sang some leads, but he was a lead guitar player. He's a phenomenal lead guitar player, still is to this day, obviously. And we're really good friends. We were never enemies. People thought we hated each other. That never was the case. I mean, I didn't really know him until I met him at KISS conventions, but what happened is I think John and everybody wanted to, except for Richie, they wanted to downstream the band to just 4 members, and I think I may have had more of a commercial viability at that point in time that John thought would be beneficial for the Frehley's Comet. So I was still playing with Cheap Trick, and John said, "Hey, this is who I'm working with. You should come out and audition." So I had the person who did our travel for Cheap Trick, I had them fly me into New York, en route to wherever the hell I was going back out on tour. I did do this twice, because the first audition, Ace was like, he's okay. Ace, he wanted more of I think a lead guitar player than a songwriter. I can play lead, but everything I do is melody. It's all construct. I'm not a jammer. Where, Richie Scarlett, you can put him anywhere and he just smokes. That's the kind of player he is. So I think Richie was better suited for the band than I was on that respect. But I was more of a songwriter, blah, 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 which I think would have been beneficial had we gone a different route. So second time they came through, I'd given them some songs that I'd written, which would end up being on the first album. And Ace said, okay, maybe he'll work, And so John had put the band together, and it was, part of the album was already recorded. And I came in and finished up my tracks and embellished some existing tracks. I did not put a lot of the, what I call Tinker Bell type keyboard stuff on songs. I would never play that stuff. My keyboard structures are very much more Babies, Zeppelin with, strings and, piano that would have some nuts to them and that kind of thing. Even though people think, I was trying to bring the band down with It's Over Now, the power ballad, but that was just, nothing could be further from the truth. But that's how I got into Frehley's Comet, and I was in the band for about a year and a half until everything hit the crapper.
Well, again, as we talked about earlier, I love that, the first album. You brought the song Calling to You from, let's say, your original writing from 707 onto the album. You recorded Breakout with your vocal on it. And, who could forget Something Moved, which is your story about a ghost, right? But funny story about Calling to You is Metal Mayhem ROC, we recently did a crossover episode where we had a bunch of panel experts, and we took a look at let's say the 80s era rock, the hair rock, and we came up with our best top 5 plus 2 honorable mention deep cuts. So no videos, no MTV hits, none of that stuff that ever, was still on Overplay 40 years later. And Calling to You was in my top 5. And everybody else agreed that it was a great pick. You guys even beat out Vinnie Vincent Invasion, but I had to give those guys an honorable mention.
That it's a great song. In 707, it was called Megaforce. We were asked to do a song for a movie, which would be Megaforce. So the story behind that is that Kevin Russell, lead guitar player, and I wrote the basics of the tune. I don't know the balance of, who wrote more. I guess it really doesn't matter, but, it's definitely a lot of me in there. And I'm pretty sure I wrote a majority of the melody. And then the drummer, Jim McClarty, who I'm still good friends with, he wrote the lyrics. Jim was a very good lyricist, a great drummer. He played piano and guitar as well. So very accomplished. And so he wrote the lyrics, which turned out to be very good lyrics. And then a new lead singer was Kevin Shelfont, who would later go on to be in The Storm, I think with Greg Rowley. But a phenomenal lead singer. He did that song. So, and the movie came out, and the movie was far different from what I thought it was going to be. But needless to say, they didn't really push the song and didn't put it where it should have been, and everything kind of took a dive. But we thought the song was pretty strong, because when you first start writing a song, with the words Megaforce, they're like, hey, we go, how the hell are we going to write Megaforce? It didn't make any sense to me, like there's no melody here, but we wrote it. And then when I was going through the catalog with Ace in his condo in West Side in New York, and we were up there talking about all my stuff, and we came across a song, and I played it for him. He goes, I like that song. I said, yeah, it's a good song. I said, I'd rather write new stuff for this record than, rehash the other stuff. Well, he was fascinated with the fact that, the song was called Megaforce, and that was the title of his record company that was being distributed by Atlantic. So he pushed it. He said, we should do this. I said, well, I really don't want to, Ace. At that point in time, I didn't want to have to get in touch with all the co-writers. Kevin Russell and I had a falling out, which has been off and on for years. And I said, I don't feel like getting in touch and doing that. But Ace was persistent. He was the boss. It was his record deal. I said, okay. So we got a hold of him and the other writers, of which Jonathan Cain from the Babies and then Journey wrote the intro for the song. And that's another story, which is in my autobiography. We had to share a piece of that because it ended up on the record, and he had nothing to do with the song except for the intro. I love Jonathan Cain. He's a phenomenal musician, but yeah, I digress. Back to the Calling to You became Calling to You. Ace changed a couple words in the release and into the chorus, a couple lines, which is fine. I mean, worked out fine, and people loved it. I was surprised, actually, at the fans' reactions, because they were like, it's a great song. And I'm thinking, well, thank you. Yeah, I think it was a good song initially. and now people are enjoying it. So it was the right move to do. Ace was right in re-recording the song, changing it up. And, Kevin Shelton was phenomenal singer. He's a better lead singer than I am. That was his gig. That's what he did. And I re-sang it, and I did okay with it, I think. I'm not a fool to admit that, they're better singers than me. I know that, and that's just the way the world rolls. But it came out pretty good, and I'm proud of what we accomplished.
Oh, definitely. It's still a favorite. And I know you did re-record it for the 4x Fate on the Relentless album. And you're still playing it live. It's a fan favorite. You're opening your shows with it. So, it's withheld the test of time over a 40-year period for sure.
We actually, thank you. And I think it has for some of the purists. We re-recorded It's Over Now. We didn't record Calling to You.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem. I'm all of a sudden I went, oh God, let me look at the record. Is that right? No,
that's my bad.
I have to remember. People ask, what do you think about this track? I said, what album was that on? I don't remember. Which seems pretentious and stupid, but the Relentless record. Getting back to that that's why it was called. Well, it's another topic, but that's why I titled the record Relentless. Because we were pushing ass to get it done. My God,
Metal Mayhem ROC.
Well, and then, again, now that we were talking about It's Over Now, that song was originally recorded on Second Sighting, your second album with Frehley's Comet, and you had a bigger role in that album. Many more of your songs were on that album. Time Ain't Running Out, Loser in a Fight, Fallen Angel, and New Kind of Lover. A funny side story, as I was thinking about us talking today, I was remembering the mixtape that I made my high school girlfriend at the time, and it had It's Over Now on it. But it was funny if you think about it, how dumb I was at 17, because thinking this is a love song, and then it sort of is a ballad. And guess what happened? The second I went off to college, she dumped my ass. So it was over.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. I wrote the song for Cheap Trick to do back in 86. 86. And they passed on it. And so I brought it over and I played it for John Regan while we were mixing the first record in the studio. I just played on the grand piano, and he just sat there and went, whoa. And he goes, that is phenomenal. We'll have to do that for the second record. I thought, all right, yes. So we did it. And then a lot of people said the very same thing. It holds a special place in their heart for their loved ones, or lack thereof, I guess. In your case, sorry.
It's okay. It was a long time ago.
It was a song actually to my ex-wife, my first wife, who's in the video. And not many people realize it, but it was kind of like an underlying warning to her to just relax, lighten up. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to worry. I'm right here. Blah blah blah. But I had to try to say, look, just that's getting the personal stuff, which I'll share. But it's just there was problems in the relationship, and I just needed her to chill out, and which she did not. So hence, I was out of there. But it was a warning song to her, actually. But it sounds like a love song,
Well, what about the rest of the songs on the album? I mean, listen, it's no secret, and we're not knocking Ace here, but he was Space Ace. He was not sober at the time, and I can only imagine it was probably difficult to be for I always looked at you guys just being the general public fan as a teenager, as you and John were like the stable forces, the voice of reason. I was like, I can only imagine the antics that were going on. But I guess shortly after that Iron Maiden arena tour, because that was the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son tour, I guess you made a decision to leave the band, correct?
Well, what happened is, first off, for Second Sighting, we did the first record, then we did the live record, and then the record company wanted to do another record, and Ace wasn't ready. Now, Ace's style of writing is defined as many different procedures. Let's just put it that way. He's written some great songs. I mean, you can't deny that. I mean, and his iconic guitar playing is phenomenal, unmatched, for what he does. But he wasn't ready with songs. So, and he didn't have, enough tracks to put on the record, and we were up against time frame. Then he got sick with a bronchitis, So the drinking thing, I don't really know if he was overly drinking. He was drinking, but I don't remember him being, schnockered too much to go in the studio. He just wasn't well, nor did he have songs ready. So John and I were like, okay, we got to get this done. That's why, a lot of my songs, and I was, prolific songwriter, then I was churning them out, and I had more, and I wanted to do more with Ace, but we didn't get that opportunity. But I did lose her in a fight, and I gave part of the writing credit to John, and I said, Ace, we should sing this together. It needed to be heavier, have more production, but we just ran out of time. But so a lot of my songs ended up on the record, and then all of a sudden people, the fans thought, oh, now Tod wants to have it Howarth's Comet. Well, that's ridiculous. I wasn't in Kiss, and I knew that. And, I was just trying, okay, we got to get this done. We can go off stuff. Granted, it probably should have been heavier, more geared towards Ace, but that was my writing style. My writing style was me. And then we went out and Ace, pulled together enough for us to complete the record, then go back out and tour. And we did the Iron Maiden thing. And then what happened with that tour, we had to bail on that tour because we ran out of money.
Oh, wow.
We just ran out of money as far as finances go. So we had to fly. Everybody had to go home. We had to, everybody had to reinvest their money from merchandise sales. I think I reinvested at that time $30,000 that I really could use for my family back into the band to keep it going. And we probably didn't, and I didn't run it, but things were probably overspent. So we all went home to lick our wounds, and it's kind of alarming, like what's going to happen next. So all of a sudden we regrouped, some phone calls and meetings, and I learned that the suits and the labels and records company wants Ace to write and sing the next record in its entirety, not me. I wasn't even going to be like, and the only money I was making was from publishing royalties. So unless we're touring and I'm not making any money anywhere, I'm thinking this is not working out too well. It's too good for me. I said, really? So I can't write or sing anymore? So it was, like that to me. And it was so many steps out, backwards that I said, look, I called Ace. I said, I got to leave. There's no way I can stay. And why? I wish you wouldn't. I said, I'd love to stay, but Ace, how am I going to make a living? At that time, I had 3 kids, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I left. I was never fired. I wasn't fired because I wrote It's Over Now. I wasn't fired because I was trying to put keyboards all over the place. I wasn't fired because I was trying to be Howarth's Comet, Comet. It's just, people said, hey, Frehley's comment,
Frehley's
Frehley's comment. What comment would that be? That was just a plain truth. That's what actually happened. And then sometimes the stories were embellished or fabricated about why Tod was let go from the band. I was like, I was never let go. I left, That's what it was.
All right. So now, so maybe talk about your friendship and let's say your continued business relationship with John, because you come back many, many years later. And again, I was with you guys along the way, and I was looking at my list of concerts. In 2014, you guys played a show out in Amityville, Long Island, and that was like very early 4x8. You guys had Svet Holland on drums, not Rob Afuso.
Right.
And then again, eventually you got out and put the 4x8 album out. I think I had seen you at the there was an outdoor music festival in Jersey. It was fall, September of 2016. You remember that one?
Yeah, it was drizzling.
Yes, yeah. It was Sunday afternoon, 3:00. It was cold and rainy. You remember that day, right?
Yeah, because John was having a conniption about that day. He was just, things weren't lining. John was used to big tours, playing with Frampton and the Stones and Mick Jagger and David Lee Roth and all these, and things were run, accordingly. And we're just flying by the seat of our ass, But yeah, I remember that show. Sted Howland was the original drummer. And we also had Sean Kelly from Crash Kelly, a Canadian guitar player, phenomenal guy, but great guitar player. But as we were recording, Stet didn't even make the recording because the weekend that we had slated to do the 6 basic tracks, he got in a car accident. So I'm already in New York, and John was like, we got to get this done, and Stet didn't even, I love Stet. We're still good friends, but he didn't even tell us. He didn't call, hey, I'm in a car wreck. I'm not going to be able to make it, Like, son of a bitch. So Danny Stanton got a hold of AJ Pero from Twisted Sister, of course, because, he worked with Sister. And AJ Pero was smoking drummer. So he did the first 6 tracks. And Sean Kelly never made the studio. We sent tracks out to him, and he sent it back to us. And a lot of the stuff was phenomenally placed. I said, I'd really like a Red Beach thing going, and he nailed it. But he withdrew from the band as well, because he says, look, I was expecting Frehley's Comet. You guys are really heavy, and I didn't expect it to be that heavy. And I'm like, we're not really that heavy. Yeah. I know where he's coming from. So we got Pat Gasparini in, who had written a track that John had recorded, and said, we got to do the song. And, Pat Gasparini is a prolific songwriter still. And that's who did, of course, the 4x Faith thing this last Friday. And we're good pals. We talk day to day. But John and I, after Frehley's Comet, we had talked periodically over the years just to catch up, see what's going on. And 4x Fate actually came about because John was thinking, hey, let's do a reunion gig. If I can get together, get Ace together and agree to do it, let's do a 25-year anniversary gig with Frehley's Comet. Are you in? I said, yeah, I'll do it. And even Anton wanted to do it. Anton to this day still wanted to do something. Matter of fact, Anton was supposed to be there last Friday. Well, I'm segueing all over the place, but Anton couldn't be there because he still was testing positive for COVID. He had just gotten over it.
Okay. But you guys stayed together, and that Relentless album, it's a good album. It's got the variety on there. It's got, Pat singing, you singing. It was just really, really good all those years later to see you and John to come back and continue to collaborate and give us, the fans, the opportunity to get out and see you on the road, and then, of course, you returned. It was in 2019 with the Return of the Comet, which, again, it played up by me at the Debonair Music Hall in Teaneck, New Jersey. And, of course, you had Steve Budgie Warner and Richie Scarlett in the band. And from what I recall that night, if my memory is correct, Ace was playing in the area that same night. And I remember there's rumors flying all over the places. When Ace's show is done, is he going to come down to the Debonair Hall and jam? And it didn't happen, of course. But cool show.
No. Yeah, thank you. It was that band with Budgie Warner is amazing drummer, and I'm still thinking about write some songs for our new type of 4x Fate thing, which will include many artists, or the artists including Richie Scarlett. I love that guy to death, and just phenomenal guitar player. But unfortunately for me, I had the influenza 4 times in 2019. And then it got into my vocal cords. So for half of those shows, or Return of the Comet, I was singing it maybe 50%. I had no wind, and I had no vocal cords. And I felt horrible for the fans that came out and paid and wanted to hear some blistering shit. Only the last couple of shows that we did with Return of the Comet was I singing at my best. And actually the band was really tight by then. So we did some great shows, but I felt bad for the people that did see the first part of those shows. It was horrible, but it was a good try for a good friend of ours who Tommy Higgins, who's a great guitar player and songwriter himself. He organized that band, and I know Tommy Higgins from Aerosmith because he had contacted me years ago about some Aerosmith things, and we tried to put it together, but it just didn't take off like we hoped it would, unfortunately. And it just, again, it is what it was.
Yeah. So, as a side note to this, Todd, I recalled, and I was looking at YouTube today, that when you guys did a Kiss Cruise pre-party down in Miami, Vinnie Vincent got up with you guys, and he was in his full Kiss makeup. And that was maybe the first time in, 30, 40 years that he had performed. Like, take us through that 5 minutes. You ended up singing Lick It Up. You took the lead vocal on that. What was that whole experience like?
Well, it was fun for the fans. I mean, the place was packed. Vinny, I think he did makeup for the other appearance he did in the Kiss thing. I think he just had. I mean, he's very pale. I think he. I don't remember if he had all the makeup or not, but the night before we went over a couple things with him, and it went fine. I was surprised at the preparedness of him, or lack thereof. I was surprised that he didn't want to play any lead. It was fun for the fans. Lick It Up. I had to put some of the lyrics down because I really don't know the song. I know the melody, but I barely. But I didn't know the lyrics, so I had to put a cheat sheet down on the ground. And it wasn't particularly out of my range. I could sing that a fun song. It was fun. It really was fun to do. I just was not used to his persona, and I really don't know that much, or didn't know that much about him. What's going on with this guy? What's his story? And you never really know the whole story to him and his personality and things he's doing or going through. But it was, I say nothing derogatory. It was just different. But it was fun. At the same time, it was fun,
Yeah, that's good. Well, it's always good for to see a guy like that pop up out of nowhere, and he's got this mystique about him, and who knows where he is or what he is these days. But anyway,
yeah.
So as we want to get into a little bit of remembrance of John's life, John, of course, passes April of 2023.
Right.
I'm about an hour and a half away from Wappingers Fall and Poughkeepsie in that area. I can't say I ever met John in person, but I do have some friends. Brian Rodemaker from Rock Eyes, Kenny Kessel from the Metal Voice, that knew him pretty well personally. I wanted to be up there. I had a Friday night to myself. I took a ride up there, and it was a really enjoyable night. Number one, because they moved it in from the outdoors. It was supposed to be in a park, and it was supposed to rain real heavy, and they brought it into what used to be the old Mid-Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie, a little concert theater that has a rich history of every band playing there. But Todd, the night was great. It wasn't just about the performance, but, there's testimonials from his priest. His wife gets up there. There were a couple local DJs and radio personalities that got up there and told stories. Hearing the story where John either wanted to or did, become an early Sunday morning DJ on radio to play Italian songs, stuff like all this kind of stuff I knew nothing about. So, maybe just what were your reflections and memories of this concert a week ago?
It went by so quickly. Pat and I talked about doing this for quite some time, and we wanted to do it last year. It never came to pass, obviously. So Pat, big kudos out to Pat for organizing it. That guy is, I thought I had my own, a circus here, I'm my own monkey in my own circus, but that guy can balance and do all kinds of stuff, and he put it together. It was very hard. People contributed, like you mentioned. So many people pulled it together, and then I was just coming off of. I had a slight vocal injury just after some. I was over singing, blah blah blah. So I kind of nursing my voice back into singing 17 songs, every day, trying to get in shape for this thing. Which luckily, voice came back just second day of rehearsal. It came back strong. Like, okay, everything's good. But we had two rehearsals with the 4x Fate band. Everybody went over their homework as much as they could, and then we had Budgie and come in, and we just went backstage. We went over some stuff. We did a Zoom call. I think the week prior to do some arrangements, and we had a lot of people come in as guests. A couple of people came in as guests, but. It was highly emotional for a lot. For me, it did hit one point when somebody had asked me to tell the story of my phone call with him the day that he passed. I mean, like hours before it passed, and it wasn't actually. And I sat there. I was having the acoustic guitar that Pat. We were doing a couple of doing some soul stuff, and the damn thing wasn't tuned, but. I asked, I said, what? Because I had my in-ears in. The guy said, tell the story. And I went, oh, okay. Well, and the story was that, my story was that I was up early get ready to walk my dog, and I got a phone call from John. So I picked the phone, it was this very phone, and said, "Hey, what's up, Johnny? What's going on? Hello, butt dial, Johnny. What you doing?" Okay. So I hung up, and I texted him. I said, "Hey, you rang with the butt dial?" And he responded, said, and I still have the text, and he said, "I did? Oh, I hope I didn't wake you." I said, no, I'm up walking the dog. I said, "No problem. I said, hey, let's talk later on," or something to that effect. So that was the last time I heard from him. And I'm going through it now, but it's very hard for us to tell that he passed. So I'm sitting on stage telling this story last Friday, and it's like, I always think of it like, the dead silence, and I'm going, all right, I'm going to try to tune this guitar again, so I went down to tune it. But everybody has their stories, and John was an incredible man, from the musician, producer, songwriter, contributor, bass player. Oh my God, when he would play, when John Regan and Anton and I would be doing sound checks or whatever or tracking, the sound was unbelievable. It's just heavy as all get out. And, of course, Ace would join, and Ace is Ace, and he'd come into a bowl of china shop and just smoke it with his style. But John was so solid, and John and I play very much the same way, very English backbeat, just lay it, I'm principally a rhythm player, that very heavy rhythm player. And the stories that people would share, Richie Scarlett would talk about, and Pat Gasparini and all the band people. It was very heartfelt, and it seemed like it went by too quickly. But it took a lot of prep, and then moving it over because we knew it was going to rain. We kept watching the weather like 2 weeks out. And then the day before, Pat says, "It looks like it's going to rain." So I know I'm watching it. So what do you think we should do? I said, let's move it. We got to move it. And so I was the one that was dead. I said, some people got upset about it. I said, well, we're not going to please the 2 or 3 that are upset about the fact that we're not playing, the Wappingers gazebo in front of his benches. I would have loved that too. But the rain came down in torrential amounts. So it was the right move to move. And luckily, Pat got the center to donate the center to us to do that. So we were very fortunate. So yeah,
listen, I will tell you, Todd, being in the crowd, I mean, I don't know the outdoor shows just from any experience, there's time limits with those, and they got to be in by certain ordinances. Felt like to me, you guys played a little under 2 hours. It was great. And what I loved about it was it felt natural. It felt real. You guys were up there. You were changing guitars, talking to each other in between songs. There was mistakes. There was restarts. It didn't have to be a perfect show. It felt like 5 friends and your guests getting up there, and just it was real. And that's what I really appreciated about it. And, changing the song at the end, you guys are ready to do Rocket Ride, and I see Richie whispering in your ear, and next thing you know, you're doing Cold Gin. It's it's just cool stuff like that. Very avant-garde impromptu.
And that's exactly the way it was supposed to be. And we all talked about it, and I brought it up as well for reiteration. Is that, look, this is not going to, and I said it, I think, at the top after the first 2 songs, I said, this is not going to be a bom, 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 bom type set. This is where we're going to talk. I'll talk a little background about the songs, like the 2 songs I said. We have Frehley's Comet, we just played, and here's another song. It was supposed to be pause and talk and draw the John stories into each song or segment, and very aloof. We've all done the frenetic show things, which is fun. But it wasn't a night for that, because it wasn't about us and look at me and how good I am and what I'm doing and bullshit. It was about John, and I wanted to talk stories and talk about John, and as did everybody else to whatever varying degree that they did. So I'm glad that you appreciated that, because that's exactly what we wanted to do. Very aloof, and Rob and I always fight on stage about stuff, because that's just we battle him. But I love him to death. He loves me to death. But we always fight about silly stuff. And it was funny. It was when Scott, after we did Breakout, and we do a Rocket Ride, and Scarlett says, I I don't want to do rock. We always did rock and roll. Let's do Cold Gin. I'd rather do Cold Gin. Okay, we'll do a Cold Gin. I don't care. Let's just do something. So it was
It's
fun.
impressive. You guys just did it and you knew it that quick.
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive.
We've all played it 1,000 times, so,
Right.
but it was fun to play. And I think, there was a time when I really didn't want to play a lot of those songs much, but the older I get to do these songs like that, they become fun again. Like Rock Soldiers became fun again for me to do, and one song, Words Are Not Enough. I've done that a couple of times, and that's a great song. And we did it. I did it with Anton Fig and Brad Lang of the Bullet Boys and Keith Robert War from Las Vegas, who does a great Ace. I did that a couple of years ago, but that came out great. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, for John, that was a gig that John couldn't make, so we got Brad Lang to do it out here in California. Yeah, we had a blast, and that the whole point was to make it fun.
Maybe the final question about the night, but who was the younger gentleman that came out to do the Peter Frampton song "Baby I Love Your Way"? Who was that? Because I recall it was, and it was John's bass he was playing, correct?
Yes, John had a lot of basses, one of which I have, the red Tokai bass, and the other Tokai went to this young man. He's 18 years old. He is the son of a good friend of John that worked at the radio station, I believe, there. Okay. And so they became good friends, and John and his father, I met his father, and then I think his nickname's 6'8" or 6'8" or something, because the guy's tall.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
So is the son. But Kathy had mentioned to both Pat and me that she would like to have this young gentleman play bass on one or two songs, because she knew we were going to do a couple Frampton tunes. One we didn't get to do You Feel, and we worked that up, and it sounded great. I was upset that we didn't get to do it. Ran out of time. So we only got to do Baby I Love Your Way with him, and the kid nailed it. And we did a Zoom meeting. Matter of fact, right where I'm sitting, we all had a meeting with about, okay, I want to do this, and here's the edits for these songs. But Baby I Love Your Way would do it exactly the way it's done. And actually, I missed something up in the end. I thought it was another song. I thought we skipped out the keyboard player solo, but we didn't. And we did it exactly, so it was easy to do. So I said, just learn the song as it is on the record, the live performance. And he did. And I was just blown away by how solid the kid was. So his heart's in it, and he's got a future as long as he keeps some other job to pay for his musical interest, But yeah, his name's Ben Reynolds, and he's a local kid there, only 18 years old. I had him laughing about a bunch of stuff, because backstage we were going over stuff, and I'd be singing the lyrics, and just for fun, I'd change them up, and change the innocent lyrics to some, smacking some bitch ass or something like that. And he was just sitting there laughing, trying to concentrate and play. But it was fun. And those are things that he'll remember forever, because I remember when people did it to me. Like, well, we're going to do it this way. I'm like, what? I rehearsed it this way, But it was fun. And that's who the young kid was. And he did a really good job. And Peter Gallinari on keyboards, who plays with Richie, great guy, phenomenal keyboard player. I said, look, this is what we want to do it. And he was like, oh, I can do that. So he brought his keyboard. They did all the cool Bob Mayo parts. And it was fun. It was really fun.
It was good. And I'm sure it puts the, little closure to the memorial for John and his wife and family. It was great for the fans to be there. So I really, really appreciate you guys putting it out. And for the listeners, go out on YouTube. There's a ton of videos out there about that show and photos out there on all the sites. But Tod, before I let you go, what's in store for you in 2024 for the rest of your year musically? Anything up?
Yeah, I hit the ground running here on late Friday night, Saturday. My son and family, his wife and my 3-year-old granddaughter are in town. Tomorrow we're taking the motorhome out in the bay, the Mission Bay. I've got to get up early, get my park spot. We're going to have cornhole and margaritas and skateboards and scooters and a little pool. I'm doing a lot of family stuff right now. because I've been doing guest appearances and a lot of other business stuff here on the property because I manage my family's commercial real estate, which is very profitable, I should say, after all these years. My folks are 92 and 88, and so I pretty much run a lot of the majority of the business and taking care of everything here. There's talk about doing maybe another show with 4x later this year and then into next year. Not sure yet. I'm at 3 weeks. I'm flying out to see my daughter and family and 2 grandkids in Missouri for 4 days. And I'm going to take the acoustic guitar and I guess, sing for some neighbors and friends or whatever. But 24, I pretty much, I want to start a local band here. I'll be 67 in September. I don't know what the hell I'm thinking, but it's kind of like, if I start a band here, at least it'll be fun to do it here. I may do that. I've got a lot of good players and friends here that are eager to do something. So I may record stuff here with this band and then put a live project together. I've got some musicians in mind. They're phenomenal players out here. I just got off the phone with a bass player that plays for 10 Cent Revenge out of Arizona. They're coming to LA to do some stuff in November. They want me to come up and do a couple songs, which I'm going to do. 25 is probably looking more towards more productive. My autobiography will be done. I'm going to work on that and get it finished in the next few months and have that out before Christmas. Big surprise. And then I'll do an audiobook of that. And some more recording after I did the 3 solo CDs, my Canvas solo series. I spent years doing those, and I was like, I just need to stay away from headphone in the studio. So there's a lot on my plate. Every day's busy. Tomorrow I watch my 3-year-old granddaughter all day, so get ready for that. Great. It's like chasing cats with balloons. But it'll be a lot of fun. And luckily I still have a lot of energy. Otherwise, just no way I'd be able to do all the things that I do. Just no way.
It sounds like you got a very full life, a very rewarding life, a very beautiful family. And I was glad to have a chance to spend an hour with you today. Tod, what are the socials that our listeners, where can we find all about Tod Howarth and 4x and anything else you want to plug?
On Facebook, we have, there's a couple Tod Howarth out there. I think there's one that's fake. So, you got to see my face and you can see the whole diatribe of all the posts. And I warn people, my main Tod Howarth Facebook page is all aspects of my life. It's not just music. It's about my family and a lot about I'm blue collar. I work every day with my hands are all scarred to hell. I work on a lot of stuff. So my political views are as such. If you're offended, then, move on or, whatever. But it's all about everything. It's all out there. There is a 4x page. There's also a Frehley's Comet page, and then another Tod Howarth, which has Frehley's Comet on it. There's also my Shopify site, which has a lot of my merchandise on it, which is primarily 4x shirts and some CDs, soon to be my book. That's todhoward.biz. And I have a website, todhoward.com, but I haven't put it back up because at this point it's kind of pointless. But that's what's happening as far as my social media goes. And I hope to be more active on it and get more new product up there. But, like I said, when I'm the single monkey in my own little circus, it gets very busy.
You're a do-it-yourself guy. And at the further on 40, 50 years into your career. So, Tod, we'll make sure we have all the socials posted on this episode when we do put it out there live. So just as a reminder, get up to our website, metalmayhemroc.com, and join our community by signing up for our email newsletter, as this is the best way to stay updated on new podcast episodes, such as what you're listening to now with Tod Howarth. Monday nights, we also have a radio show on metaldevastationradio.com. And again, if you like what we're doing, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. So, Tod, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And listeners, this has been Metal Walt, and this is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Metal for life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.